Sofia Martinez wiped down another table, her back aching from the 10-hour shift that wasn't even close to ending. The chandelier lights of Bellissimo, one of Manhattan's most expensive Italian restaurants, sparkled overhead like stars she was too tired to wish upon anymore. The dinner rush was in full swing, with wealthy guests in designer clothes laughing over $200, bottles of wine while Sofia calculated if she had enough in her account to fix the leaking sink in her tiny apartment table. "7 needs more bread," called out Pietro, the head waiter, as he rushed past with a tray of martinis. Sofia nodded, tucking a strand of dark hair that had escaped her tight bun. At 26, she felt decades older, especially on nights like these when the restaurant was packed and understaffed. She hadn't sat down since her 15-minute break 4 hours ago. She headed to the kitchen, passing the beautiful grand piano that sat in the corner of the dining room. It was an antique Steinway that the owner kept more for show than use, though sometimes on special nights they hired a pianist. Sofia always slowed down when she walked by it, her fingers itching with a familiar longing. Tonight she let her hand brush against its polished surface for just a second, before continuing to the kitchen. "How's your brother doing with those college applications?" asked May, another server, as they loaded bread into baskets. "He's working so hard," Sofia said, a smile breaking through her exhaustion. "2 more scholarship essays to go. I think he has a real shot at that engineering program." Sofia's phone buzzed in her apron pocket, a text from her brother, Diego. "Just finished essay number 3. Can I use your laptop tonight? Mine crashed again." She quickly typed back, "Of course," before slipping the phone away. 4 years ago, when their parents died in a car accident, Sofia had put everything on hold to take care of Diego. She'd been 19, with a full scholarship to the Manhattan School of Music, and he'd been 14, with nightmares that woke him screaming. The choice hadn't really been a choice at all. "Heads up," May whispered, nodding toward the entrance. "The VIPs have arrived." Sofia turned to see the maitre d' practically bowing as he welcomed a group of 6 people. At the center stood a tall man with steel gray hair and a tailored suit that probably cost more than she made in 3 months. Even from across the room, his presence commanded attention. "That's Richard Hargrove," May said under her breath. "The tech guy who bought that social media company last year. Worth billions." Sofia had seen his type before. The ultra-wealthy who treated servers like furniture, sometimes worse, because at least people were careful not to damage expensive furniture. "Not our section." "Thank goodness," Sofia said, grabbing her bread basket. May winced. "Actually, Pietro just switched assignments. He wants you to take the Hargrove table." "What? Why me?" Sofia's stomach dropped. VIP tables were usually reserved for servers with more seniority. "Because you're the only one who never complains when the rich ones get difficult," May said. "Also, Pietro thinks you have a soothing presence, whatever that means," Sofia sighed. "So I'm being punished for being professional?" "You're being punished for being good at your job," May corrected, squeezing her arm sympathetically. When Sofia approached the Hargrove table, she could already feel the energy, a mix of power, money, and the peculiar entitlement that came with both. Richard Hargrove sat at the head of the table, not bothering to look up when she arrived. The others, 2 men and 3 women in business attire, were hanging on his every word as he described his latest acquisition. "Good evening," Sofia said with the warm but not too familiar tone she had perfected over the years. "Welcome to Bellissimo. My name is Sofia, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." Hargrove glanced up, his pale blue eyes scanning her for half a second before dismissing her entirely. "We'll need your best wine list. Not the one you show regular customers, the real one." One of the women laughed nervously as if Hargrove had made a clever joke instead of a rude demand. "Of course, sir. Our sommelier will be right over with our reserve list." Sofia maintained her smile, though it no longer reached her eyes. The evening proceeded exactly as she had expected. The Hargrove party ordered the most expensive items, questioned every ingredient, and sent back 2 perfectly prepared dishes. The billionaire himself hardly touched his food, more interested in dominating the conversation with stories of his business conquests. The CEO actually thought he could negotiate. Hargrove laughed, cutting through his barely touched Wagyu steak. "I told him your company is burning cash like a bonfire. You don't have leverage here." As Sofia refilled water glasses, Hargrove abruptly turned to her. "This water isn't cold enough," she nodded. "I'll bring fresh glasses right away, sir. And these napkins are too stiff." "Don't you have anything better?" Sofia hesitated. The restaurant used luxury Italian linens that cost a small fortune. "I'll check with my manager, sir." As the night wore on, Hargrove's demands grew more unreasonable. He complained about the lighting, the temperature, and even the background music. His guests seemed increasingly uncomfortable, but none dared contradict him. During the dessert course, Sophia noticed one of the women, a younger executive with kind eyes, trying to catch her attention. When Sophia approached with coffee, the woman whispered, "I'm so sorry about all this." Sophia gave her a genuine smile. "It's all right. Just part of the job." "It shouldn't be," the woman murmured, but quickly straightened up when Hargrove looked their way. Near midnight, most of the restaurant had cleared out. Only Hargrove's table and a few other late diners remained. Sophia was cleaning nearby tables when she heard Hargrove's voice grow louder. "This place claims to be top tier, but I'm not impressed," he announced, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "The service is adequate at best." Sophia kept her head down, focusing on wiping a table clean. She thought of Diego, probably still awake working on his essays, and reminded herself why she tolerated this kind of treatment. Just 2 more years and he would graduate. Then maybe she could think about her own dreams again. As she moved to clean the table nearest to the piano, Sophia couldn't help but rest her hand on the closed keyboard cover for a moment longer than necessary. In her mind, she could hear the Chopin nocturne she had practiced the night before her audition all those years ago. "You." Hargrove's voice cut through her brief moment of peace. "Server girl." Sophia turned, composing her face into professional neutrality. "Yes, sir? Do you even maintain that thing, or is it just for show?" He gestured toward the piano with his whiskey glass. "The owner has it tuned regularly, sir," she replied. "It's quite valuable." Hargrove's eyes narrowed, something calculating in his expression. "You seemed pretty interested in it." "Do you play?" The question caught her off guard. At her hesitation, a smirk spread across his face. "I used to," she finally admitted. "Used to?" He laughed, drawing the attention of the remaining diners. "What does that mean?" "It's like riding a bike, isn't it?" One of the businessmen at his table chuckled nervously. "Richard, maybe we should get the check." No, I'm curious now." Hargrove set down his glass and leaned forward, fixing Sophia with his cold stare. "Our server here is apparently a pianist. I think we deserve some entertainment for all the money I'm spending tonight, don't you think?" Sophia felt heat rising to her face. "Sir, I don't think the owner would." "I just bought 3 buildings on this block last month," Hargrove interrupted. "I'm pretty sure your boss wouldn't mind keeping me happy." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Even the kitchen staff had paused to watch the uncomfortable scene unfolding. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest as she saw Pietro emerging from the back, his face pale with worry. "Mr. Hargrove," Pietro began. "Perhaps I want to hear her play," Hargrove insisted, his voice carrying the absolute certainty of a man who always got what he wanted, unless she was lying about her abilities. Sophia stood frozen between humiliation and anger. This wealthy man was turning her into a circus act for his amusement, and there seemed to be nothing she could do about it. She thought about quitting on the spot, but then remembered the stack of bills waiting at home and Diego's hopeful face as he talked about college. "One song," she said quietly. Hargrove raised an eyebrow, perhaps surprised by her agreement. "Well then," he said, gesturing grandly toward the piano. "Impress me, server girl." As Sophia walked toward the instrument, she felt every eye in the room on her. Her uniform felt suddenly too tight, her shoes too loud on the marble floor, but with each step something else was stirring inside her, something she had buried 4 years ago along with her parents and her dreams. She sat down at the bench, adjusted it to the right height from muscle memory, and took a deep breath. Whatever happened next, she would at least have touched a real piano again. And maybe, just maybe, she could show this arrogant billionaire that there was more to her than he could possibly understand. Sophia's fingers hovered over the piano keys, trembling slightly. The restaurant had fallen so quiet she could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant clatter of dishes from the kitchen. Behind her, she felt rather than saw Richard Hargrove's smug smile, his expensive cologne drifting across the space between them. "I'm waiting," he called out, tapping his watch. "My time is worth about $30,000 an hour, so make it quick." Someone at his table laughed nervously. Sophia closed her eyes, trying to block out everything except the cool ivory beneath her fingertips. It had been 4 years since she'd played on a piano this fine. Her own keyboard at home was a cheap plastic thing with keys that stuck sometimes, but she still played it late at night when Diego was asleep, the volume turned almost all the way down. What should she play? Classical would be safest. Maybe Chopin or Debussy. Something to show skill without being too showy. But as she sat there, another melody came to mind. The piece she had been working on before her parents died. Her own composition that no one had ever heard in full. "Today, server girl," Hargrove called out. "Or did you lie about being able to play?" Sophia took a deep breath. No, she wouldn't give him something safe. If he wanted a show, she would give him one, but on her terms. Her fingers touched the keys, and the first notes of her composition filled the air. Soft, questioning, like raindrops at the beginning of a storm. The piece began simply enough, a melody that spoke of everyday life, of routine and small joys. But then it shifted, growing more complex. The left hand adding a counter melody that hinted at something darker approaching. She had written it during her first year at music school, inspired by the changing seasons in the city. But as she played now, she realized it had become something else, a story of her life these past 4 years. The sudden turns, the struggle, the beauty found in unexpected moments. The restaurant disappeared around her. She forgot about Hargrove, about the watching eyes, about her aching feet in their sensible black shoes. There was only the music, her music, flowing out of her like a river that had been dammed up too long. The piece built toward its middle section, where the notes tumbled over each other like autumn leaves in a whirlwind. Sophia's hands moved faster, stretching to reach intervals that once would have been easy but now made her fingers burn. She didn't care. The music carried her forward. At some point, she became aware of a shift in the energy of the room. The tension had changed. No one was laughing anymore. No one was whispering. Every person sat completely still, caught in the spell of the piano. Even without looking, she sensed Hargrove's change of posture. His initial amusement giving way to something else. Surprise, confusion? She couldn't tell and didn't care. This moment wasn't about him anymore. As Sophia moved into the final section of her piece, the part that spoke of resilience and quiet hope, she finally opened her eyes. The restaurant looked different somehow. The warm light softer, the faces around her open and wondering. An older man at a corner table had tears in his eyes. A young couple held hands tightly across their table, watching her with matching expressions of awe. And at the largest table, Richard Hargrove sat completely still, his arrogant smile gone, replaced by a look of genuine astonishment. Beside him, the kind-eyed woman from his party was watching Sophia with what looked like respect, maybe even admiration. The final notes of the piece lingered in the air like a question waiting to be answered. Then Sophia lifted her hands from the keys and the spell broke. For 3 heartbeats, there was complete silence. Then the restaurant erupted in applause. People stood from their tables, clapping enthusiastically. The kitchen staff had come out to listen, and they whistled and cheered from the doorway. Pietro, her manager, had a strange expression on his face, like he was seeing her for the first time. Overwhelmed, Sophia rose from the bench. Her legs felt wobbly, and her face burned with embarrassment and something like pride. She hadn't performed in front of others since her scholarship audition years ago. That was unexpected. The voice came from just behind her. Hargrove had left his table and now stood a few feet away, studying her with narrowed eyes that had lost their earlier mockery. "What piece was that?" he asked, and his tone was different, careful, almost respectful. "It's my own," Sophia replied quietly. "I composed it." His eyebrows shot up. "You wrote that?" She nodded, suddenly very aware of her server's uniform, of the small stain on her apron from a spilled espresso earlier, of the distance between their worlds. "You don't belong here," he said flatly. The brief moment of connection snapped. Of course, he was still the same arrogant billionaire, ready to put her back in her place. "I have tables to serve," Sophia said stiffly, turning away. "That's not what I meant," Hargrove said, reaching out as if to stop her, but then thinking better of it. "I meant you don't belong in this restaurant as staff. You should be playing professionally." Sophia gave him a tired smile. "Life doesn't always work out the way we plan, Mr. Hargrove." Before he could respond, an older man approached them. He was well dressed in a subtle, elegant way that spoke of old money rather than new. Sophia recognized him as the man who had been sitting in the corner, the one with tears in his eyes. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying a slight Italian accent. I couldn't help overhearing. That piece was extraordinary. Thank you, Sophia said, wishing she could disappear. She wasn't used to being the center of attention. I'm Antonio Ricci, the man continued, extending his hand. Sophia wiped her palm nervously on her apron before shaking his hand. Sophia Martinez. Something flickered in Ricci's eyes. Martinez? Any relation to Elena Martinez, who studied at the Milan Conservatory in the 80s? Sophia's heart skipped a beat. She was my mother. Ricci's face lit up. I thought I heard her influence in your playing. Elena and I were classmates. She had a remarkable talent, especially for composition. I see she passed it on. Sophia swallowed hard. No one had mentioned her mother's music in years. You knew my mother? Knew her? We competed against each other for every prize. Ricci laughed. She usually won, much to my frustration. I lost track of her after she moved to America. She gave up performing when she had me, Sophia explained, a familiar ache in her chest. She taught piano from our home instead. And she taught you well, Ricci said. That piece you played, it has her spirit, but it's uniquely yours. Tell me, are you planning to record it? Sophia laughed despite herself. I don't exactly have access to recording studios. I work here full-time. Which is a criminal waste of talent, Hargrove cut in unexpectedly. The two men acknowledged each other with curt nods. The universal greeting of wealthy men who recognized each other's status but weren't necessarily friends. Ricci turned back to Sophia. I happen to be on the board at Juilliard, my dear. We're always looking for exceptional talent. Sophia's breath caught. I had a scholarship there once, to the Manhattan School of Music, actually. 4 years ago, but my parents died, and I became my brother's guardian. I couldn't... She trailed off, not wanting to share her life story with strangers in the middle of a restaurant. Pietro was hovering nearby, clearly wondering when she would get back to work. I should go, she said, gesturing vaguely toward the other tables. Wait, Hargrove said, pulling a business card from his jacket pocket. Take this. Sophia hesitated before accepting the small rectangle of heavy cream cardstock. Why? Because I was wrong about you, he said simply. And I don't admit that often. Call my office tomorrow. Before she could respond, Ricci also handed her a card. And call me as well. Talent like yours deserves a stage, Ms. Martinez. With that, both men returned to their respective tables, leaving Sophia standing by the piano, holding 2 business cards that felt impossibly heavy in her hand. She slipped them into her apron pocket, her mind spinning. Pietro approached, his expression unreadable. Sophia braced herself for a reprimand about neglecting her duties. Instead, he squeezed her shoulder gently. Why didn't you ever tell us you could play like that? He asked. Sophia shrugged. It never came up. Well, for what it's worth, you've made this old Italian cry happy tears, Pietro said, gesturing to his damp eyes. Now finish your shift, but tomorrow you and I need to talk. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Every customer who had heard her play stopped to compliment her on the way out. Hargrove's party left a tip that made Sophia's eyes widen, enough to fix not just the leaky sink but probably the entire plumbing in her apartment building. The kind woman from Hargrove's table had lingered behind as the others left, waiting until the billionaire was outside before approaching Sophia. I don't know if you'll call him, she said quietly. But you should. He's difficult and demanding, but he has connections everywhere. And contrary to how he acted tonight, he does appreciate real talent. Sophia nodded, not sure what to say. My name is Lucia, by the way, the woman added. I run the foundation side of his business. We fund arts education in underserved communities. We could use someone like you. With that cryptic remark, she followed the others outside, leaving Sophia standing alone in the now quiet restaurant, the weight of the business cards in her pocket feeling like keys to doors she'd thought were permanently closed. When she finally got home that night, Diego was asleep on the couch, her laptop still open beside him, his college essay displayed on the screen. Sophia covered him with a blanket and sat down at her cheap keyboard in the corner of their tiny living room. She placed her fingers on the keys but didn't press down. Instead, she took the 2 business cards from her pocket and stared at them for a long time, wondering what tomorrow might bring. Sophia woke to the sound of Diego rummaging in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of their small apartment, and for a moment she couldn't remember why her fingers were sore. Then it all came rushing back. The piano, the music, the applause, the business card still sitting on her keyboard. "You got home late," Diego said when she shuffled into the kitchen. At 17, he was already taller than her, with their mother's warm eyes and their father's serious expression. "Rough shift?" Sophia filled a mug with coffee, wondering how to explain what had happened. Actually, it was different. "Different good or different bad?" Diego asked, spreading peanut butter on toast. "I'm not sure yet." She pulled the business cards from her pocket where she'd put them after staring at them half the night. "I played the piano at the restaurant. People heard me." Diego's eyes widened. "You played? Like for real? On that fancy piano they have?" Sophia nodded. "That's awesome. Was it your song? The one about the seasons?" "Yes," Sophia said, touched that he remembered. She hadn't played it around him in years. Diego grabbed the business cards, studying them. "Richard Hargrove? The tech guy? And who's Antonio Ricci? Apparently a friend of Mom's from music school. He's on the board at Juilliard." Diego looked up sharply. "Are you serious?" "Sophie, this is huge." "I don't know," Sophia said, sipping her coffee. "It might be nothing. Rich people make empty promises all the time. But what if it's not nothing?" Diego leaned forward, excitement lighting his face. "What if this is your chance?" Sophia shook her head. "My chance for what?" "I have a job." "We have a life here." "A job you hate," Diego pointed out. "Look, I know why you gave up music school. You've spent 4 years taking care of me instead of following your dream. But I'm nearly done with high school. I can take care of myself now." "It's not that simple," Sophia began, but her phone buzzed with a text from Pietro. "Come in an hour early today. We need to talk." She showed Diego the message. "See, I probably broke some rule by playing last night. I might even get fired. Or maybe he wants to make you the house pianist." Diego grinned. "Call those numbers, Sophie, promise me." Sophia tucked the cards back in her pocket. "I need to get ready for work, promise." Diego insisted. "Fine," Sophia sighed. "I promise. But don't get your hopes up, okay?" When Sophia arrived at Bellissimo, the restaurant had a different feel, or maybe she was just imagining it. The same elegant tables, the same gleaming silverware, the same grand piano in the corner. But something had shifted. Pietro waved her into his small office off the kitchen. To her surprise, the restaurant owner, Mr. Valentini, was there too. Sophia's stomach tightened. Maybe she really was about to be fired. "Sophia." Mr. Valentini rose to greet her, shaking her hand with both of his. "Why didn't you tell us you played like that? Pietro called me last night after closing. It never came up," Sophia said, the same answer she'd given Pietro the night before. "Well, it's come up now," Mr. Valentini said. "Antonio Ricci called me this morning. We go way back, Antonio and I. He says you're Elena Martinez's daughter." Sophia nodded, still not sure where this was going. "Your mother was magnificent," Mr. Valentini said, his eyes distant with memory. "I heard her play in Milan once before she came to America. Antonio says your composition last night was extraordinary." "Thank you," Sophia said, shifting uncomfortably. Pietro leaned forward. "We want to offer you a different position, Sophia. How would you like to play the piano here 3 nights a week? We'd pay you more than you make as a server, and you'd work fewer hours." Sophia blinked in surprise. "You want me to be the house pianist?" "We've been paying outside musicians good money for years," Mr. Valentini said. "Why not pay you instead? You clearly have the talent. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Pietro urged, "unless you're planning to take up Antonio's offer to apply to Juilliard." Sophia's mind raced. "I can't afford Juilliard even with a scholarship. I have Diego to think about." "Well, this could be a start," Mr. Valentini said. "Play here, build a reputation, see where it leads. You can keep some server shifts if you want the extra money." It was more than she'd expected. A chance to play regularly, to earn money with her music, without having to abandon her responsibilities to Diego. But before she could answer, the restaurant phone rang. Pietro answered it, then held it out to her. "It's for you," he said. "Richard Hargrove's assistant." Sophia took the phone, her heart pounding. "Hello? Ms. Martinez? This is Oliver, Mr. Hargrove's personal assistant. He'd like to meet with you today at his office. Are you available at noon?" Sophia looked at her watch. It was just past 10 a.m. I'm actually at work right now." Pietro waved his hands and mouthed, "Go. We'll cover your shift." "I suppose I could be available," Sophia amended. "Excellent." A car will pick you up at 11:30. Where should the driver meet you? Sophia gave the restaurant's address, then hung up, feeling dazed. Mr. Hargrove wants to meet with me today. He's sending a car. Mr. Valentini and Pietro exchanged glances. Whatever he offers you, Mr. Valentini said, remember our offer stands. But if I were you, I'd hear what the man has to say. Richard Hargrove doesn't waste his time on people unless he sees potential. The black town car that pulled up outside Bellissimo at precisely 11:30 drew stares from passers-by. The driver, a woman in a neat suit, held the door open for Sophia, who had changed out of her server uniform into the nicest clothes she had brought to work, a simple blue dress and cardigan. Ms. Martinez, the driver greeted her. I'm Alicia. It's about a 20-minute drive to Mr. Hargrove's office. Sophia slid into the back seat, feeling out of place among the leather upholstery. As the car pulled away from the curb, she pulled out her phone and dialed Antonio Ricci's number before she lost her nerve. A secretary answered, and when Sophia gave her name, she was immediately put through. Ms. Martinez, I was hoping you'd call. Ricci's warm voice came through the line. I've been thinking about your composition all night. Truly remarkable work. Thank you, Sophia said. I'm actually on my way to meet with Richard Hargrove right now. Ah, Ricci said, his tone cooling slightly. Richard is an interesting man, brilliant in business, of course. What does he want with you, if I may ask? I don't know yet, Sophia admitted. But before I meet with him, I wanted to ask, were you serious about Juilliard? Because I should tell you I can't afford, my dear, Ricci interrupted gently. Talents like yours don't come along every day. There are scholarships, fellowships, work-study programs. If you're worried about your brother, yes, Pietro mentioned your situation. There are ways to manage. I'm not saying it would be easy, but it would be possible. Sophia looked out the window as the car moved through the city streets. I gave up a full scholarship once already. And that couldn't have been easy, Ricci said. But circumstances change. People grow. Perhaps it's time to reconsider what's possible. By the time the call ended, they were pulling up to a sleek skyscraper in Midtown. Alicia led Sophia through a lobby of marble and glass to a private elevator that whisked them up to the 50th floor. The doors opened onto a vast office space with panoramic views of the city. Sophia tried not to gawk as she followed Alicia past busy employees to a glass-walled conference room where Richard Hargrove stood looking out at the skyline. He turned as they entered, his expression unreadable. Ms. Martinez, thank you for coming. Sophia nodded, suddenly very aware of her simple clothes and worn shoes. Please sit. Hargrove gestured to a chair. Would you like anything? Coffee? Water? No, thank you, Sophia said, sitting stiffly. I appreciate the invitation, but I'm not sure why I'm here. Hargrove sat across from her. Up close in daylight, he looked different than he had at the restaurant. Older, perhaps, with fine lines around his eyes that spoke of more than just age. Stress, maybe. Or loneliness. I owe you an apology, he said, surprising her. I behaved badly last night. I put you on the spot for my own amusement. Sophia hadn't expected this. Yes, you did. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. You're direct. I like that, he leaned forward. What you played last night, it was extraordinary. I've heard a lot of music in my life, Ms. Martinez. I've attended the finest concerts in the best venues with the most celebrated musicians. But I can't remember the last time I was moved like that. Sophia didn't know what to say. This was the last thing she'd expected from the arrogant man who had demanded her performance. I looked you up. Hargrove continued. Sophia Martinez. Full scholarship to Manhattan School of Music 4 years ago. Withdrew before classes began. Parents died in a car accident the same month. Became legal guardian to a younger brother. Sophia felt a flare of anger. You investigated me? I investigate everyone who interests me, Hargrove said matter-of-factly. It's how I stay successful. I find talent and I invest in it. I'm not a startup you can buy shares in, Mr. Hargrove. He actually laughed at that. No, you're not. But you are someone with extraordinary gifts who has put them aside for admirable but ultimately limiting reasons. Sophia stood up, suddenly angry. You don't know anything about my reasons. Or my life. I know enough, Hargrove said calmly. I know you've sacrificed your dreams to take care of your brother. I know you worked double shifts at a restaurant where, until last night, no one knew what you were capable of. I know talent like yours is rare and it's being wasted. It's my talent to waste, Sophia said. Yes, it is, Hargrove agreed. But what if you didn't have to choose between your responsibilities and your music? What if you could have both? Sophia sat back down slowly. What are you suggesting? I have a proposal for you, Hargrove said, sliding a folder across the table. A year of private study with any teacher you choose, living expenses covered, plus a stipend for your brother's education. At the end of the year, a recital at Carnegie Hall featuring your original compositions. Sophia stared at the folder without opening it. Why would you do this? You don't even know me. Hargrove was quiet for a moment. My mother was a pianist, he said finally. Not professionally, she never got the chance. She had the talent, but not the opportunity. By the time I had the money to give her that opportunity, she was too ill to take it. He looked out at the city again. I've built my fortune recognizing potential and removing obstacles. Consider this an investment in potential. Sophia opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. The terms were generous, more than generous. Almost too perfect. What's the catch? No catch, Hargrove said. Though I do have one condition. He leaned forward. I want first rights to publish your compositions through my new music publishing company. Fair market rates, of course, so there it was. Not charity, but business. Somehow that made Sophia feel better. This wasn't about pity. I need to think about it, she said, closing the folder, and discuss it with my brother. Of course, Hargrove nodded. But don't take too long. An offer like this doesn't come along every day. As Alicia drove her back to the restaurant, Sophia held the folder on her lap, feeling its weight. Inside was a chance she never thought she'd get again. A door opening to a life she'd given up on. She thought of Diego's face that morning, his insistence that she call, his belief in her. She thought of Antonia Ricci's words about her mother, about possibilities. She thought of Mr. Valentini's offer to play at the restaurant, a smaller but safer step, and she thought of her music, the piece she'd played last night that had silenced a room full of strangers and made even a hard man like Richard Hargrove. Listen, for the first time in 4 years, Sophia let herself imagine a different future, one where her music could be heard. The apartment was quiet when Sophia got home that evening, the folder from Hargrove clutched in her hand like a precious treasure. Diego had left a note on the fridge. At the library. Back by 8, made pasta, your half is in the microwave. Love you. Sophia smiled, warmed by her brother's thoughtfulness. She heated the pasta, slightly overcooked but made with love, and sat at their small kitchen table, spreading out the contents of Hargrove's folder beside her plate. The offer was even more impressive on second reading. A year of private study with any teacher of her choice, living expenses covered, a stipend for Diego's education, and the recital at Carnegie Hall. Just seeing it in writing made her breath catch. She pulled out her phone and searched Richard Hargrove Music Publishing. Several articles popped up, all from the last few months. Apparently, the tech billionaire had recently purchased a struggling but respected music publishing house and invested millions in modernizing it. The business world was puzzled by the move, calling it an unexpected pivot and a sentimental investment. But now Sophia understood. His mother had been a pianist. This was personal for him. She was still reading when Diego burst through the door, his backpack heavy with books. How was the meeting? He asked immediately, dropping his bag and looking at the papers spread across the table. What's all this? Sophia took a deep breath. You might want to sit down. She told him everything. Valentini's offer to play at the restaurant, Ricci's encouragement about Juilliard, and finally, Hargrove's proposal. Diego listened with wide eyes, occasionally picking up a document to examine it more closely. So let me get this straight, he said when she finished. You have 3 amazing offers and you're actually hesitating? Sophia sighed. It's not that simple. The restaurant job is the safest option, but it's not a real path forward. Juilliard would mean 4 years of school, and while Ricci mentioned scholarships, there's no guarantee. And Hargrove's offer is literally the opportunity of a lifetime, Diego finished. But it's just for a year, Sophia pointed out. What happens after that? And there's the publishing contract. Diego leaned forward, his expression serious. Sophie, can I say something? And I need you to really hear me. Sophia nodded. For 4 years, every decision you've made has been about me. You gave up your scholarship, you took that job, you put all your dreams on hold. And I will never ever stop being grateful for that. His voice cracked slightly. But I'm not a kid anymore. Next year I'll be in college. You don't need to keep sacrificing for me. I'm your guardian, Sophia began. You're my sister, Diego interrupted, and I want you to be happy. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to, not because it was the responsible thing or the safe thing, but because it made you happy? Sophia couldn't answer. She couldn't remember. Last night when you played that piano, Diego continued, the whole restaurant went quiet. Even that rich jerk was speechless. That's who you really are, Sophie, not a server, a musician, an artist. Sophia felt tears prickle her eyes. What if it doesn't work out? What if I take Hargrove's offer and after a year I'm back waiting tables? Then you're no worse off than you are now. Diego shrugged. Except you'll have played at Carnegie Hall. How many people can say that? Sophia laughed despite her tears. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher. Diego smiled, squeezing her hand. That night, Sophia lay awake, turning over her options. By morning, she had made her decision. She called Hargrove's office first. Oliver answered, and when she asked to speak with Mr. Hargrove, she was surprised to be put through immediately. Ms. Martinez. Hargrove's voice was clipped, businesslike. Have you considered my offer? I have, Sophia said, her voice steadier than she felt. And I'm interested, but I have some conditions of my own. There was a pause, then what sounded like a surprised chuckle. Go on. First, I want to apply to Juilliard's graduate program for next year. If I'm accepted, I want the freedom to attend regardless of our arrangement. Doable, Hargrove said. What else? Second, I want to continue playing at Bellissimo one night a week. The owner gave me a chance and I won't abandon him. Another pause. Also acceptable, though it seems unnecessarily sentimental. Anything else? Sophia took a deep breath. Yes, the publishing contract. I want first right of refusal on any use of my compositions, and I want a lawyer to review the contract before I sign anything. This time, the pause was longer. You drive a hard bargain, Ms. Martinez. I'm just protecting my work, Sophia said. You would do the same. Indeed I would, Hargrove agreed, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Very well. I'll have the papers amended. When can you start? The next month passed in a whirlwind. Sophia gave notice at Bellissimo, though she continued to play there on Thursday nights as she'd promised. Word had spread about the waitress with the extraordinary talent, and the restaurant was booked solid on the nights she performed. Pietro had hugged her when she told him about Hargrove's offer. We'll miss you as a server, he'd said, but we're proud to keep you as our pianist. Antonio Ricci had been equally supportive when she'd called him. A year of private study is an excellent foundation for applying to the graduate program, he'd told her. And a recital at Carnegie Hall won't hurt your application. Either. Sophia had chosen her teacher, carefully, an elderly Russian woman named Irina Petrova, who had once taught at the Moscow Conservatory, before emigrating to New York. At their first meeting, Petrova had made Sophia play for 3 hours straight, saying nothing, her face impassive. At the end, she had nodded once and said, You have heart, the rest we can teach. The apartment Sophia and Diego moved into was nothing like she had expected. When Hargrove had said living expenses covered, she had imagined a slightly better version of their current place. Instead, Oliver had shown them to a spacious 2-bedroom apartment in a doorman building near Lincoln Center. This is too much. Sophia had protested. Mr. Hargrove owns the building, Oliver had explained with a shrug. It was sitting empty. He said you should be close to the music. Diego had been thrilled with his new room, which had a proper desk for his studies and fast internet. Now you don't have to worry about me while you're practicing, he'd said. I've got everything I need right here, and practice she did. Sophia spent hours each day at the beautiful baby grand piano that had mysteriously appeared in their living room the day after they moved in. A practice instrument, the note from Hargrove had said. Consider it a loan. Petrova was a demanding teacher, making her repeat passages dozens of times until they were perfect, assigning pieces that stretched her abilities to their limits, but Sophia loved every minute of it. With each day she felt layers of rust falling away, replaced by new skills, new confidence. She composed in the mornings, worked on technique in the afternoons, and sometimes late at night when Diego was asleep. She played just for herself, rediscovering the joy she had put aside for so long. 3 months into her year of study, Petrova announced it was time to select the program for the Carnegie recital. You will play one classic piece to show your technique, the teacher declared. Then your own compositions for the rest of the program. People should hear what you can create, not just what you can play. Sophia was working on the program one evening when her phone rang with an unknown number. Sophia Martinez, she answered, distracted, a pencil between her teeth as she marked her score. Ms. Martinez, this is Richard Hargrove. Sophia nearly dropped her pencil. She hadn't spoken directly to the billionaire since their meeting in his office. All arrangements had been handled through Oliver. Mr. Hargrove, she said, sitting up straighter even though he couldn't see her. Is everything all right? Everything is fine, he said. I was calling to check on your progress. Madame Petrova speaks highly of you, which I assure you is rare. She once told Yo-Yo Ma that he played like a child with a toy. Sophia laughed despite her nervousness. She's demanding, but incredible. I'm in town tomorrow evening, Hargrove continued. I'd like to hear you play, see how my investment is coming along. Sophia hesitated. The thought of playing for him again made her stomach knot. Their last encounter had changed her life, but it had started with humiliation. As if sensing her reluctance, Hargrove added, just to be clear, this is a request, not a demand. You're welcome to decline. That surprised her. No, it's fine, she found herself saying. I could use the practice playing for an audience besides my teacher and my brother. Excellent. Shall we say 7 p.m.? I can come to you or we can arrange a proper space. Here is fine, Sophia said. The baby grand was an excellent instrument, and she felt most comfortable in her own space. After hanging up, Sophia immediately called Diego, who was at a study group. Hargrove is coming here tomorrow to hear me play. That's great, Diego said. You can show him how much you've improved. Or he could decide he's wasted his money and pull the whole deal, Sophia worried. He won't, Diego said confidently. You're amazing, Sophie. Even better than before. He'll be blown away. The next evening, Sophia paced nervously around the apartment, which she'd spent the morning cleaning. She'd practiced for hours, then forced herself to stop so she wouldn't be tired. Now she was second-guessing every piece she'd selected to play. At precisely 7 p.m., the doorman called up to announce Mr. Hargrove's arrival. Sophia smoothed her simple black dress and took a deep breath. When she opened the door, Hargrove stood alone in the hallway, looking different than she remembered. Less intimidating somehow in a casual jacket rather than his usual suit. Ms. Martinez, he greeted her. Thank you for agreeing to this. Please come in, Sophia said, stepping aside. And since you're visiting my home, you might as well call me Sophia. Hargrove nodded, stepping into the apartment. Then you should call me Richard. It was strange having this powerful man in her living room, looking at her family photos, commenting on the view from her windows. He seemed genuinely interested as she showed him the composition she was working on, asking intelligent questions about her process. Well, he said finally, gesturing to the piano, shall we? Sophia nodded and sat at the bench arranging her music. Then she placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The piece was one of her newest compositions, inspired by her changing life, the challenges, the opportunities, the fear and exhilaration of stepping into the unknown. As she played, she forgot about Hargrove, about Carnegie Hall, about everything except the music flowing from her fingers. When she finished and turned on the bench, she was startled to see not just Hargrove listening, but Diego as well. He must have come home during her performance, slipping in quietly to listen. But what surprised her more was Hargrove's expression. The billionaire was sitting perfectly still, his eyes suspiciously bright in the lamplight. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Hargrove cleared his throat. My mother would have loved that piece, he said softly. Thank you. And in that moment, Sophia understood that music could build bridges between the most unlikely people, a waitress and a billionaire, connected by nothing more than the universal language of harmony and emotion. The morning of the Carnegie Hall recital dawned bright and clear. Sophia stood at her apartment window, watching the early light touch the city buildings. In just 12 hours, she would be performing on one of the most prestigious stages in the world. The thought made her stomach flutter with a mixture of terror and excitement. You're up early, Diego said, shuffling into the living room in pajama pants and a t-shirt. At 18, he'd grown another inch in the past year, his face losing the last traces of childhood. Couldn't sleep? Sophia smiled. How could I? Nervous? He grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl and sat at the piano bench. Terrified, Sophia admitted. What if I freeze? What if I forget everything? What if people hate my music? Diego bit into the apple. First, you won't freeze. You've been practicing for a year with the scariest teacher in New York. Second, you've never forgotten a note in your life. And third, he grinned, if anyone hates your music, they have terrible taste and their opinion doesn't matter. Sophia laughed, grateful for her brother's unwavering support. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart, Diego said, pretending to be offended. You were just too busy taking care of me to notice. The past year had transformed both their lives. Diego had graduated high school with honors and been accepted to Columbia University with a partial scholarship. Between Hargrove's stipend and the money Sophia now earned from her performances at Bellissimo and a few other venues, they could afford the remaining tuition. Sophia had flourished under Madame Petrova's strict guidance. The elderly teacher had pushed her harder than she'd ever been pushed, but had also opened doors Sophia hadn't known existed. Through Petrova, she'd met other musicians, composers, and conductors. She'd been invited to play at small venues throughout the city, building a modest reputation as both a pianist and a composer. And just last month, she'd received the letter she'd been hoping for, acceptance to Juilliard's graduate program with a full scholarship. Antonio Ricci had called personally to congratulate her. Your mother would be so proud, he'd said, his voice warm with emotion. Elena always said music was in your blood. She was right. The doorbell rang, interrupting Sophia's thoughts. That'll be Lucia, she said, after Hargrove's visit to hear her play. His foundation director had reached out to Sophia, offering to help with the practical aspects of the recital. Over the months, Lucia had become a trusted advisor and friend. Diego jumped up to answer the door. I'll get it. You should eat something. It's going to be a long day. Lucia swept in with her usual efficiency, carrying a garment bag and a look of determined excitement. Good morning. How's our star performer? Terrified, Sophia repeated. Perfectly normal, Lucia assured her, hanging the garment bag on a door frame. Even the greatest musicians get stage fright. The difference is they use it as fuel rather than letting it paralyze them. She unzipped the bag to reveal a stunning midnight blue gown. Your dress for tonight. Richard insisted it be a surprise. Sophia touched the fabric, heavy silk that seemed to shimmer with hidden depths. It's beautiful. Wait till you see how it looks on stage under the lights, Lucia smiled. Now let's go over the schedule for today. Car will pick you up at 2 for the final sound check. Photographer at 4 for program photos. Reception line starts at 6:30. Performance at 7. Sophia nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. Will Richard be there tonight? Lucia's expression softened. He's flying in from Tokyo specially. He wouldn't miss it. Over the past year, Sophia had seen Hargrove only a handful of times. Each visit had been to hear her progress, and each time, the dynamic between them had shifted slightly. The arrogant billionaire who had once humiliated her had slowly been replaced by a thoughtful patron with a genuine appreciation for her music. Not a friend exactly, but no longer the enemy she'd once considered him. I'm going to shower, Diego announced. Big day for the Martinez family. After he left, Lucia sat beside Sophia on the couch. How are you really doing? And don't say terrified again, Sophia laughed. Terrified and grateful. When I think about where I was a year ago and where I am now. She shook her head. Sometimes it doesn't feel real. You earned this, Lucia said firmly. Yes, Richard opened a door, but you're the one who walked through it and climbed every step. Your talent did that, not his money. I know, Sophia said. But still, without that night at the restaurant, without him challenging me. Life is full of strange turning points, Lucia agreed. Sometimes the most difficult moments lead to the greatest opportunities. Hours later, Sophia stood in the wings of Carnegie Hall, the murmur of the gathering audience washing over her like waves. She peered around the curtain, her heart pounding at the sight of the magnificent space filled with people. Some she knew, many she didn't. In the front row, she could see Diego in his new suit. Looking so grown up, it made her throat tight with emotion. Beside him sat Pietro and Mr. Valentini from Bellissimo, both beaming with pride. Antonio Ricci was there with several Juilliard faculty members. Madame Petrova sat ramrod straight, her expression severe as always, though Sophia had caught her smiling during their final rehearsal. And on the other side, in the center of the front row, sat Richard Hargrove. He looked tired, Sophia thought. Probably jet-lagged from his flight, but alert, his attention focused on the empty stage. 5 minutes. the stage manager whispered. Sophia nodded, smoothing the blue silk of her gown. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, thinking of her parents. How she wished they could be here tonight. Her father would have cried. He always did when she played. Her mother would have been critical but proud, pointing out sections that could be improved even while accepting compliments on her daughter's behalf. They are here, Madame Petrova had told her during their last lesson, in your music. In every note you play, this is how the dead live on. The lights dimmed and a hush fell over the audience. It's time, the stage manager said. Sophia walked onto the stage, the spotlight finding her as the audience applauded. The Steinway grand piano gleamed under the lights, its lid raised to project the sound into the hall. She took her bow, then settled on the bench, adjusting it slightly. For a moment she was back in Bellissimo, a tired waitress forced to play for a demanding customer. But now she was here by choice, by invitation, by right of her talent. She began with Chopin, a nod to tradition, to her training, to the classical foundation that supported her original work. Her fingers found the keys with confidence, muscle memory taking over as her mind settled into the music. When she finished the piece, the applause was warm and appreciative. Sophia smiled and nodded her acknowledgement, then prepared for the main part of her program, her own compositions. She had organized them as a journey, beginning with the piece she'd played that first night at the restaurant, then moving through compositions that charted her year of growth and change. Each piece told a story of loss and hope, struggle and triumph, fear and courage. As she played, Sophia forgot about the audience, forgot about Carnegie Hall, forgot about everything except the music flowing through her. This was why she had practiced until her fingers cramped, why she had studied theory until her head ached, why she had spent countless hours refining each note, for this feeling of pure creation, of speaking her truth through sound. The final piece was new, one she had composed specifically for this night. It began softly, tentatively, like a question being asked. Then it gathered strength and confidence, building to a central section that was complex but clear, challenging but accessible. It spoke of gratitude without sentimentality, of opportunities recognized and seized, of lives changed by chance encounters. As she played the final notes, letting them linger in the perfect acoustics of the hall, Sophia realized there were tears on her cheeks. She hadn't cried while playing since she was a child. But these weren't tears of sadness or even happiness. They were tears of completion, of a circle closing. The silence that followed lasted only a moment before the audience erupted in applause. Sophia rose and bowed, her vision blurring as she took in the standing ovation. In the front row, Diego was cheering loudly, his face shining with pride. Beside him, Pietro and Mr. Valentini were clapping enthusiastically. Madame Petrova remained seated. Standing ovations from her were rare indeed, but she was nodding in approval, which was praise enough, and Richard Hargrove stood perfectly still amidst the applause, watching Sophia with an expression she couldn't quite read. When their eyes met, he gave her a small, private nod, acknowledgement of a journey completed, a contract fulfilled, a promise kept later at the reception. Sophia moved through a sea of congratulations and praise. Juilliard professors discussed her upcoming studies. Music critics requested interviews. Fellow musicians offered collaboration opportunities. Her head spun with possibilities. You were magnificent, Diego said, hugging her tightly. Mom and Dad would have been so proud. We are all proud, said Antonia Ricci, joining them with a glass of champagne. That final piece, extraordinary. The way it built from uncertainty to such confident resolution. A perfect metaphor for your journey. Sophia smiled, accepting the compliment with more ease than she would have a year ago. Thank you for believing in me. The belief was easy, Ricci said. The talent was always there. As the evening progressed, Sophia found herself face to face with Hargrove. He looked more relaxed now, the tension of anticipation gone from his shoulders. Well, he said simply. You did it, Sophia nodded. I did. Thank you for making it possible. No, Hargrove shook his head. Thank you for proving me right. My mother used to say that true talent only needs opportunity, not permission. You've more than proven her point. Sophia thought about the long road that had brought her here, from the restaurant where she'd served this man dinner, to this moment of mutual respect. What happens now? Our agreement is complete. Now? Hargrove raised an eyebrow. Now you go to Juilliard. You continue to compose. You build the career you deserve. He paused. And if you're willing, my publishing company would still like first right of refusal on your work. This time with you as a full partner, not just a talent to be developed. Sophia considered this. A year ago, she might have been suspicious of his motives, might have wondered what he really wanted from her, but now she understood that for all his wealth and power, Richard Hargrove was just a man who loved music and recognized something of his mother's unfulfilled dreams in Sophia's journey. I think we can work something out, she said, offering her hand. As they shook on their new agreement, Sophia caught sight of Diego across the room, deep in conversation with one of her new Juilliard professors. Her brother was growing up, finding his own path. And so was she, from Waitress to Carnegie Hall in 1 year. It wasn't the path she'd expected, but standing here now, surrounded by music and possibility, Sophia couldn't imagine any other way.